And we are here as a quorum. It is the Town of Trophy Club workshop, June the 10th, and we're going to enter into a work session, and we have a quorum. So this is really going to be managed by our town secretary and town manager. However, I'd like to just say up front, we will not be making any decisions. This is open discussion. There is no decision coming out of this in terms of a decision. So would you like to start this, Brandon? Oh, first read it, please, for us, Tammy.
Item 1, presentation and discussion of recommended changes to the appointment process for boards and commission members, the creation of a new boards and commissions member handbook, the formation of ad hoc committees and subcommittees, including the appointment committee and fiduciary oversight committee or budget committee, and the creation of a council rules and regulations procedure manual.
Thank you. All right.
And I'll just give a quick intro here, and then between Town Secretary Dixon and I, we will be kind of going back and forth on these topics, but primarily it will be her. So but we'll be covering 5 main areas together today as we review some areas that we are kind of offering up as recommendations for how to streamline several versions of the appointment process, the boards and commissions manual, and several things related to that. First of all, we'll be talking about the general policy and procedures for appointments to our boards and commissions. That will include some changes to the appointments committee as well. Second on here, we'll be reviewing the criminal history check for boards and commission applicants. Currently, we don't have any sort of a background check that happens with that, so we've put together some draft language for how to address that. We have some recommended changes for the creation of ad hoc committees as well. And that is kind of when we form groups to get together, whether they be council members or residents, but serving together to benefit our town in some way. Then we will be talking about updates to the draft boards and commissions manual. That's a complete rewrite of that particular document. You have right now a version that has boards and commission stuff in it and has town council stuff in it. And so this is kind of just separating out boards and commissions, adding to it, making it more descriptive and complete for our boards and commission members. And then very last, we'll talk real quickly about the council rules and procedures manual, and that would be a process, not that we have any recommendations here tonight, but just about the general process that we would like council to sign off on as we move forward into creating a new manual for that, taking it out of ordinances and approving that by resolution. So those are the 5 things that we're going to try and get to. So we have some work ahead of us to do over the next 45 to 50 minutes. So Tammy, if you want to kind of jump in, and then we'll just kind of tag team.
And as the mayor said, this isn't for approval tonight, but it is for discussion and giving staff direction on how we should move forward and bringing these items to you. So the first item on policies and procedures for appointments, we split that process out. And as we said, for council rules and regulations, we have a proposed policy, but if we come up with the council rules and regulations, this will be incorporated into that manual. So currently, we didn't suggest any changes with the appointments committee. The way it was currently set up, the council would still appoint a committee of 3 council members. The one main change that we added to this was a process for recommending and reviewing potential board and commission member removals. So the Code of Ordinances allows the board members are appointed at the will of council and can be removed, but there was no process. It asked if somebody's missed a lot of meetings, or if there's somebody moved out of town, if they're no longer a resident, how would we handle that? So the recommendation is that upon the chair, the town manager, the town secretary would go to the appointments committee. Here is the information, and let the appointments committee review those, whether if there was excuse or reason, a temporary move, whatever the results may be, the committee can make recommendation to the town council that that member be removed. And again, it would be the council's decision. Do you have any questions?
So I guess I'd like to speak to that regarding really overseeing the board and the participation of the board members. Is it appropriate? I think I would like, honestly, to see our board members be more engaged when they're at the dais. And is there any way to build in coaching or training as a part of, it's like, at what point do we ask, okay, what contribution are you making? So is there a way to help facilitate the contribution?
In the manual, there's a section area, so once they're appointed, training,
Right.
and then we'll be bringing in the staff liaison, so when you have your first meeting of the year with your new members, having more involvement in explaining to the board their duties, their responsibilities, and do training at that time, in addition to other training that we do for Open Meetings Act, Public Information Act. Economic Development has some training videos and that we provide from the State Comptroller's Office and other training modules that are provided by TML.
Correct. Okay. So will there be some very specific oversight of that so that we know that this is occurring? Because some of it's online and some of it's at will.
Some of the training is required. If the council wants to create additional training requirements, we can add that in. There are some other cities that have, for an example, of commissions training at the beginning where they require everybody to attend. So it'd be an open meeting such as this. And then those members that don't attend, they videotape it and then make the members watch that video or attend that meeting. And if they don't, then it's automatic termination from that board. So again, that's a policy we can bring forward to the council if you'd like that language included.
Do you want to speak to that?
Mayor, on the, going ahead of, on the proposed draft, page 26, 123, which is the proposed manual.
External training. Yeah.
There's number 209, orientation and training. These are required by law, the Open Meetings Act and things like that. But if you wanted to enforce or actually specify that P&Z has to have some type, EDC would be something different. Okay, possibly the Parks Board or ZBA.
Correct.
Would need some other type. I think that would be where it would be put.
There's one of the cities that I referenced, I used as a model, I used Flower Mound, for example, and they are the ones, they're another Toast city, and they do this mandatory training where they have an open session. This is your requirements. This is what we expect out of you. This is what we expect out of the chair. And we kind of go over ethics, the rules and regulations, and then there'd be expectation from the council to the members and the chairs about their participation in those meetings. They adopted that requirement by ordinance or requirements for that main training. If that's something you'd like us to look into, we can bring a draft forward.
Are there other thoughts on this?
But ZBA would be different training or different orientation than Parks or P&D.
You could have a general.
EDC. So
Yes.
each one, there would be a general how to act in a meeting, which I think you've got.
Yes.
External training, which
And then-
covers that. But I think what you're looking for is more specific.
What I'm looking for is to make it more comfortable, less intimidating to be on the board. And I think that there's various different opportunities we can insert to help facilitate some of that. And that's what I want. I feel like that sometimes people come up here, and all of us, and all of a sudden you're in front of whomever you don't know, and may not be getting all the expertise that's available to us. I want more training for our board members. Others?
I remember, Brandon, you did, this was a couple months back, maybe? I think it was EDC, but you basically did a half-hour presentation about kind of what it is to be an EDC board. What does it mean? How do you make a motion? I think that's what I'm hearing over here. Specifically, I mean, there could be the generic formula, if you will, type of discussion, but maybe more specific commission by commission, board by board.
Yeah, I think we owe it to them. We're asking them to serve the town, and we want them to be as successful as possible serving the town. And the more we can help shore up their strength and their opportunities and their contribution, I think it's a win-win. Now, it's going to require more time on a board member's part, but if they are accepting the position, then that's part of the That's part of the qualifications.
We can implement that training.
I'm sorry,
with the
what?
staff. We can implement that training with the staff liaisons, again, at their first meeting of each year to go over that training with them.
Okay, all right, that's
that what
part of
you're-
it.
Mayor, what I think I'm hearing is everyone participates at a different level.
Correct.
Some of them never say a word. Some of them take over the meeting. So I think if we run into those things, then maybe some training along the lines of running an effective meeting might need to take place, because over the last year, I've gone to most of the meetings. And some of them, you have someone that just takes up all the oxygen in the room, and some of them that you know are brilliant and you've interviewed and they're qualified, they never say a word. So I think some training on how to communicate effectively from the dais would be a good plan.
You have comments?
Well, I'd like to see, if we replace somebody midstream, then we would do like an individualized training for them.
I agree. Yeah, to help them be successful.
Exactly.
Stacy, you have anything to say? No. So what, Brian, you got anything to say on this? You're a serving member. What would you say to this?
My priorities are to make sure that we lower barriers to entry for people that want to be involved, but we put the structure around them to where, like you just said, where they understand their mission and that they're making an impact. I think depending on what board and when and who the staff liaison is over time, you get inconsistent results historically, and that's something we can probably systemize a little bit now. To your point about different people maybe being afraid to speak up or whatever, and Luann, you mentioned it too. I think having conversations with people that have run meetings in the past about how to just facilitate the discussion
Right.
is good, right? How do you facilitate when you know one side of the dais is quieter than the other? Maybe throw it over to them and say, hey, Jeff, you were quiet tonight. You got anything on this one? You know, I mean, things of that nature, or even just more structured sort of
Right.
what to expect. Yeah, I think everything you guys are saying is really in line with how I feel. Whatever it takes to elicit more participation, but also effective time spent at the board meeting.
True. And again, just like Luann said, we worked specifically hard last year. We're going to do it again this year, looking at the qualities, the knowledge, skills, and abilities that people bring to the application. And if, they're selected for some of that reason. We want that information. We want that participation. We want that direction. We want those ideas. And that's where I'm going. Other comments? Is that good?
And I just want to clarify real quick for our drafting purposes, you desired for the council to have this be mandatory training for them at the beginning of their service. Is that correct?
Yes, if they apply, this is a part of their application, I will do this kind of
Okay, all
thing.
right.
Yeah, I mean, I think some reasonable time frame within the first couple months or
Yep.
something. Right.
Just want to make sure that will include that in there, that language in there, that it is a requirement of it, and we'll kind of work through the details. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
The other, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, yeah.
Under the policy and appointment, we didn't make any changes to the recruitment. It was with the exception of based on council feedback since I've been here, Brandon's been here, requiring applicants to consent to his criminal history background check.
Thoughts?
Mayor,
Yes.
I take exception with the criminal history background check. I think it's too aggressive. I would prefer just requiring a background check. That will flag anything that's criminal. I just think that we are trying to recruit people to give up their time, family time, professional time, to be on these boards, and I don't want to have a barrier to that, say, okay, we're going to do a criminal check on you. I think we should just do a background check, and if anything's flagged, then if you need to go to a criminal check, then you can do that.
Well, maybe this is a dean question. What's the difference between a general background check and a criminal background check?
Yeah, so there are some
Here's the difference.
differences. It's been a long time since I've been in municipal court, but there is a very basic DPS check with only a few dollars to perform. And then there's also more involved checks after that. So I think that's what you're getting at, right? Just the initial check that can lead up to the more specific check if there are additionals.
Well, do you think it's necessary that we go into a full criminal check on an applicant for
No.
a board?
I'd like to invite Denise
Denise?
up because she's the Human
She's the
Resources
expert.
Department is the expert of that when we were discussing.
Come on up.
Come on up, Denise.
There we go.
Explain it.
You win.
Hi, good evening, Mayor, members of council. Not sure I'm the expert at this, but I'll try to assist. So we do background checks for all employees that come on. And so the conversation was kind of doing the council or the board and commissioners in the same venue that we use. We use First Check. And so it does just check their status, their residency here, and then we do a county background check. So they pull anything that may be on the record in a criminal matter, like any misdemeanors or felonies or anything like that would come up on this check. We also do a DMV check and a sex offender check as well.
So we have, if you look at number 2 here, on page 6 of the packet, or I'm sorry, 5 of the packet, there's 5 things listed there. Are there any of those 5 that would not show up? I had a question about one of them too, actually, kind of similar to what Luann said, but I'm just curious, while we're all talking about this, is there any of those 5 that would not show up in what we're talking about as a standard background check? Because I agree with Luann in principle. I think just the standard thing might get it done, but I want to understand the difference.
Denise just mentioned county. Does that cover a broad spectrum?
It does not. They will do the check based off of the counties that the individual has listed that they've lived in or comes up that they have lived in, but it's not an FBI check and it is not a live scan fingerprint check as well. So if we say just check Denton County and Tarrant County, that's all that's going to be reviewed.
So what are we gaining?
So my only other
So what are we gaining?
or sorry, but no, I just wanted to mention my only other bit of feedback on that one, piggybacking off of Luann's initial comment, is if we do leave these enumerated in here, which we may decide, I mean, I'm not opposed to the gist behind it necessarily, but the number 5 about moral turpitude, I think that's also maybe in our charter or something somewhere. I don't know that that's ever really been tested. I don't know what that means. I don't know who decides what it means. So it might be something that we should avoid putting in writing.
Well, dishonesty, fraud, deceit, conduct contrary to justice or otherwise.
Yeah, but it's not a conviction.
No.
I mean, I don't know, it's just, yeah, it seems a little, I mean, I wouldn't die on a hill on any of these things, but it seems a little wishy-washy to what you said earlier, Luann.
And if they weren't charged with something that fit that, like, we're not going to get it,
It
the
would show
result
up
back.
somewhere else anyway, I would think.
So Denise, let me be clear then. There's a difference between a criminal history background check and the application for employment type check, where you go about 2 layers and the other's about 5, right?
Yes, part of the employment one does include the criminal piece of it, but it's not an in-depth, it's just touching the counties that we're requesting, so that FBI and the fingerprint that may capture anything that's in and if the police chief is here, I think it's called CGIS, any of that criminal information system that the FBI and police use, we wouldn't get that. They're just running from what the courts have.
So could we agree on calling this a general background check and still be able to do that rather than call it a criminal history background check?
I'll defer to Dean.
Yeah, well,
I prefer the topic general.
Yeah, I think we can look at how we need to draft it based on this discussion.
Well,
Go ahead.
I guess my comment is, should this policy that we're talking about be any different from what we already use when we're hiring a town employee? I mean, why not have a consistent policy?
yeah, in practice, that is how it will be That's how we're recommending that it be implemented, right? That it be just the same as hiring an employee on it. So we'll do that same level of background check, get the results, check it for items against the list here, right? To make sure that it's consistent with that. There are flags, then that item would be pulled, that application would be pulled from consideration.
And at that level, this would not be unlike what you'd be doing if you were volunteering to be a coach or youth league or something like that, which I think let me guess, I think where you're getting at with this, Luann, is we want to kind of soften the language a little bit, soften the stance. This isn't any big, it's no different than any other.
Yeah, so.
Right, it sounds a little steep on the wording necessarily, right? Yeah.
If this came to you, how would, what's your response? You're going to want to do a criminal background check?
If I may say, part of the application process for employees, we do not refer to it as a criminal background. We just call it a background check.
Let's do that.
Sure.
That makes sense. Now, what's the cost per check?
It ranges from $25 to $50.
There you go.
It could exceed $50, but that is dependent upon how many counties they search.
So,
80 to 100 applications?
yep.
And
We're looking at,
the town secretary can talk about how many we do per year and how that will get budgeted out.
Is it possible for the applicant to pay for it itself?
You got
don't like that.
We have a hard enough time trying to.
Why?
It's a lot of money.
Is there an impetus to bring this forward? Have we had an incident? What's the reason why this suddenly becomes an issue?
There was a request since I've been here, if we did criminal background checks on boards and commission members, and that came from council member.
I'm only aware of one accusation, who knows if it's true or not, where somebody had a misdemeanor when they were a teenager, and they're now in their late 50s.
We put the caveat.
And it followed, and so other than that, we have a hard enough time getting people to volunteer to begin with to fill up some of these positions. I'm not looking forward to putting an imposition to them. And if there hasn't been any incident in our life cycle of our town, why bring it forward?
Well, I'm not sure I follow you, Dennis. Incident with an individual?
Well, if, in other words, has there ever, in the Trophy Club town, Frank, have we had an incident where we've had a board member or some volunteer who has a criminal background that came up and it became light in public?
How would we know if a check wasn't done?
That's right. Have we had an incident that would have?
Well, we're setting up, to me, we're setting a policy to address that, not something that's post.
No, I know that. We're getting ready to spend some money, and it's only $600 to $1,000, so not a big deal. But at the same time, is it something that would stop somebody from applying just because they don't want a background check? Not that they have anything to hide, it's just, in other words, why is it here? That's a question. Is there a reason why we need it in our ordinance?
I think it was raised last year, and we went back and we said there is no, on the application, it did not show that there was a criminal.
It was raised last year on Facebook, and the person involved had a misdemeanor when they were a teenager, and they're currently in their 50s. That's BS.
But individual instances aside, whether that was right or wrong, doesn't matter. We're talking about setting a policy that should be universal. It's universal for all of us when we hire or when we accept a position or try to apply for a position. Why wouldn't we do that before? I just think it's a good business practice.
Elected officials do not take a criminal background check.
I have a
know, that's
question.
why I'm
We
here.
would not.
I have a question. Did you do it in DeSoto?
Boards.
Background checks?
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you do it in Flower Mound?
No.
Was that criminal, Brandon, or just a background check?
So is a background check.
Okay.
That included that criminal history part of it, yes.
This language came from DeSoto's.
I just say soften the language.
Soften the line and figure out if we, in our budget, we can afford it. So there you go.
Yeah, I support the gist of it, the general objective, but I agree with Luann. Soften it a little bit, just so we don't look standoffish.
I have a question
Yeah.
to Tammy. How many applications did we have last year for boards?
54.
54 times 25.
Right.
And last year was a strong.
That's right. We're going to work on it hard. Now, also, I've read in here that if I'm reapplying, I will be asked to take this background check. So it refers to new applicants and reapplying.
And I would need to check with wording. So the intent was that is so that if you're implementing this policy, it's this point going forward.
Correct.
I'm not sure if somebody's already been appointed and had a criminal history background check, if they were reappointed in 2 years, if we would just run one for 2 years, or if we would go through that whole process again. So that's a good question. I'll clarify that.
Okay.
And then the other question I had, we put in, we added a time frame. So if it's within the past 10 years.
Yes,
So if
I did
something
see
came up
that.
30
I
years
thought-
ago, you wouldn't want that to show against them. So are you comfortable with the 10-year period?
Yes.
Fairly standard.
I mean, I think you get into the weeds there. I mean, there's some things you might feel different about. There's some you might not, I mean, if it's violence or if it's, I don't know. I mean, there's way too many weeds to dig into, but I think just having a general blanket that reflects similar to what is
Mirror it
good.
to be exactly like we do with them.
Yeah, yeah.
Technicality, you're putting it into Article 1.04, which currently has nothing. It's 0. Where in Article 1.03.039 on B, membership and selection of members shall be provided in accordance to guidelines in the handbook. So if you put this in the handbook, you've got it covered. You don't need to mess with, and that's in under town council, citizen boards, commissions, corporations, and appointments.
Also, I think the qualifier here really is if an applicant is found to have been convicted. They can have a felony and misdemeanor, but they're not convicted. Right?
Yeah, we're only looking for charges.
Convictions.
Yeah.
So,
Is you said
worth it?
charges, she said convictions. There's a difference. Somebody can be charged and never convicted. So it's got to be based on a conviction.
it says found to have been convicted
Correct.
of a
That's the way
qualifying
the-
felony.
The wording is it's convicted.
When you run, typically they have when there's a charge, there's a disposition alongside it. So you would know that, I believe, in that
So
information.
I'm just
right?
saying that,
Yeah.
so, there you go. Okay, other questions on this? Are we good with this? You have what you need, Tammy?
No, the only other caveat is that we would run all the background checks through HR.
Yes.
And then they would come back. So if I gave her 20 applications and only 18 qualified, the appointments committee and everybody from that point would say, here are your qualified applicants. No one would know who did not pass. So there's confidentiality
Okay,
and that information
good.
would not be shared with anybody, not myself nor Brandon.
Okay. In the process, how long does it take to do all these checks? Right now, we're dealing, we typically, and I know this is coming up for conversation, but typically we'll announce applications sometime in June, which usually is June 31st. Excuse me, I know you'll be different. And that means we start interviewing in July.
No.
So how long does it take to do this, and will it infer or impede getting the applications to the committee?
It does take some time. So from the time I put them in the system and they receive an email to fill out a questionnaire, to when the company First Check gives us the result, it's typically 3 to 5 days. Now, if they can't get responses or there's a holdup in any of their records, then it could take longer than 5 days.
So the applicant would be filling out a part of the application would be this sheet that you just talked about.
Correct. So Tammy would get the application. She would give me all of their contact information. I would put it into the system, and then the system automatically sends the candidate a email asking them to fill out a questionnaire. So it's an extension of the application process. So it's not included in our
It really is,
application.
time-wise, is depending upon the applicant coming back with answers to the questions.
Correct, and that should only take 10 to 15 minutes for them to put in their
Understand,
general
but in some
information.
of the timeframes with volunteers, you could be talking 1 day or more.
I mean, I have a real concern about that regarding time, because we're going to be, I think, looking at open applications in the next couple of weeks. So we have 4 weeks, and we know that people wait till the last minute to do things.
Do we say,
And so
when you,
that is going to impede our time.
do we say when you send it back, it's due back within 48 hours or 72 hours? Or, I mean, do you leave it open-ended to address this issue? Or can we not put something in there, at least to encourage them to
Yeah,
return it?
you can, having been through the process many
That is
times. The reality is that some people don't fill them out right away, and some people take a week or 2 or 3,
Right.
and some people don't ever fill them out.
That's right.
On it. That's kind of what happens in the process. You will have less people go all the way through the process with a background check component to it, for sure.
That's what I'm afraid.
And it definitely does slow it up. It doesn't mean that we can overcome it, right? We just have to start the process, make sure that we get it going. But it will slow it up because you are waiting for this component to create eligibility. Once you verify eligibility, that person moves on in the process. So there's an eligibility period that you have to add in there. That could take, in most cases, about a week, okay, to complete.
My only point was putting a due date, there's no downside, right? I mean, will it help? I don't know. But if you say it's due back within, if it's a Monday, that Friday, whatever it is, sometimes people react, Brandon, to your point, better with timelines.
And we can definitely have that timeline. Also, in the system that we use, I get notification as soon as they finish the questionnaire, so I can look every single day and say, these people still haven't done it, turn that over to Tammy, and staff can send them an email saying, it's been 24 hours or 3 days and you still haven't done it, and give them friendly reminders.
I'm sorry, but we're in the mode of attracting strong, qualified people. And this, to me, is going to get in our way in terms of time, in terms of people hanging in long enough to finish it, everything. And I just heard Brandon say you have dropouts. I mean, that don't finish, so they don't get in the application pool. And I don't know about y'all, but
I agree with you, Mayor.
it's a challenge to get good applicants, and I think that this has a way of putting the damper on it a little bit. That's just my decision. That's my thought. Anybody else?
I hear what you're saying, but I still think it's a good policy. While this year we may be up against it time frame wise, we're setting a long-term policy, so I don't want to make a decision based on this year's time frame.
This would not be implemented this year. We're already starting it. This is in the future.
Okay. well,
Correct?
Yeah, because we haven't approved tonight would not be approval of the policy, right? We'd still have to
Okay,
move.
well,
the
then-
Okay, then that might give us more time to flush this out, and
Yes.
make it become an integrated piece of our process that we can communicate to the town. Because right now, we're getting ready to ask for applicants, and we're going to tell them this. This isn't the way it's been done, so I think this is great that we can.
It's a policy, but there's no
Policy.
process yet.
Yes.
Yeah, if the
We
council.
won't adopt the,
Go ahead.
we won't adopt a policy then.
Yes.
Well, the idea was to include it in the applications this year. If you want to hold off while we
Hold
soften the policy, then it won't go into effect
addresses-
until next year. And that way it's in there and people will know, so we can. put it in the
Based
second
on, we've
page.
already spent a half hour on this, and I'm only 10 minutes into my comments or whatever, so we're not finishing this workshop tonight. And therefore, anything that's in here is, in my mind, in my thought, is not implemented this year.
Well, let's get through the board.
We'll find out about that as we go, I guess, won't we, Dennis? No, my general feelings, I think we're headed in the right direction. I generally agree with Lou Ann. I think if we were to soften the language, if it reflects no different than what you're doing when you want to volunteer to be a youth soccer coach, that should be plenty, we should be able to accommodate that. But I'm not too worried about, criminal infiltration of our boards and commissions, but not everyone feels that way. So.
Okay, so are we good to go on this one then?
Yes.
All right,
Clear direction.
thank you. Next.
The next item is creation of ad hoc committees, task forces. Currently, the Code of Ordinances provides for the creation of ad hoc committees and other boards and commissions, but does not provide for procedures or guidelines in that essence. What we did after I started here, you created an ad hoc committee for the arts commissions. We adopted that ad hoc committee by a resolution, which sets a purpose, a timeline, and when they're finished with that task, the committee is dissolved. So our proposed language is that all ad hoc committees and task force would be created by resolution and/or ordinance. The resolution must provide the purpose, establishment of members. The mayor shall recommend the members subject to the approval of the town council. And again, any committee or task force shall cease to exist upon their accomplishment. And then any existing ad hoc committee, task force, or committee not created by resolution or ordinance consistent with this would cease to exist upon the adoption.
Comments?
Mayor?
Dennis?
My thought is, on this is only to put a sunset in your resolution, to put a sunset date in there. In other words, it's until it ceases it to exist upon the accomplishment of the purpose, that's one, or when abolished by town council.
Well, that's what it says.
No, I understand that, but I'd like to see a sunset date in there, or that the town council has to consider the sunset date. Later on, somewhere either, I think it's maybe in this manual or something, it talks about that it goes away or it ceases to exist when the new council comes in.
Oh, that doesn't work.
And I didn't understand.
No, and I didn't understand that. So that's basically, so I'm trying to clarify it
It's
too.
over here.
One, once it finishes its purpose, yes, okay. Two, to have some type of known time limit and a sunset date, would be, to my way of thinking, the way to do it. But am I not correct in saying somewhere in the background of this boards and commission manual, it talks about
That
and a new-
information should not have been included, so in that manual.
Do you follow me?
Yes.
I'm confused.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, one thing that,
section,
one thing that we had talked about, which
I read that.
the point here, right, is this idea of making sure that there is an end unless it's desired to be continued, right?
Right.
With that, and so one thing we talked about was adding in a 1-year sunset, right? So
Wow.
if it does not. It would sunset in 1 year unless extended by the town council, right? So the town council would have to take action to continue something beyond that.
Yeah,
Now that,
sunset just means we get to look at it and
Correct.
approve it for continuation.
But I think
Yes.
that addresses Dennis's point.
It
that-
does.
That line that he just read, then comma, not to exceed 1 year unless approved by council.
Correct,
Something
yeah.
like that.
Okay.
Each of those ad hoc committees will come to you for discussion and approval. So if there was one and you knew that it was going to take longer than a year, at that time of the adoption of that resolution, you can set that date.
Okay, good.
Right,
So
and the
this
language,
isn't-
needs to be consistent
That-
with this.
Yes, and
right?
that manual is a
No, I
draft. and It'll be
understand.
consistent
Okay.
once we get this side.
So that's one thing I had. Now, the other thing is, all of a sudden, the word task force comes into this thing. And throughout this whole workshop, and there's 4 different areas, you talk about boards, commissions, task force, which I have not heard before, and I'm not aware of us having one, and we don't have a definition of one, ad hoc, corporations.
Corporations is part.
And sometimes you have, like here, on the same page, criminal history check for boards and commissions. Well, what about our corporations? What about ad hocs? Do you follow me? It's inconsistent throughout the different sections. And that could be because they were written at different times.
There's another section where we're creating that any board, the definition of a board would mean any board, commission, corporation,
Yep.
task force committee, in case somebody, a lot of cities, I mean, other agencies use the word task force, so we just threw that in there. If you want that word removed. we can-
Well, I'd like it removed because it doesn't reflect Trophy
Okay,
Club, but
absolutely.
that's just me. But all I'm saying is this brought up the fact that I had to go back and look at each item and say, does it say board, commission, corporation? You know,
But if you-
and they're all different.
Oh, and
So
our-
make them even, just be consistent. That's all I'm asking.
Our goal when we get through this, in that section, in the Code of Ordinances that say boards and commissions, and it's blank, so you're going to have boards and commissions, you're going to have the definitions, you're going to have the code updated, and then any reference to policies, procedures will reference the
Got it?
correct
Nope.
manuals.
Thank you.
That's good.
That's what I got.
Okay, good. Anything else? Now, I just want to go to this fourth bullet because right now in the policy, it says any existing ad hoc committee. So any existing ad hoc committee today will be, cease to exist. And how are we doing that? What's the procedure for making that happen?
Not adopted by resolution or ordinance. So if there are other committees, or I have no record,
Okay,
official record or document
That's
that says B committee exists, because there were
Okay.
different committees from different parks and boards and things that we have not been able to get a infinite hold on. So if there was something that ceases to exist and somebody is passionate about it, then it'll come before the town council, can discuss it, and then we can set the parameters in a resolution and or ordinance to provide guidelines.
There was
In my
another
time,
ad hoc committee, and it was listed on the website, and that was for connectivity.
correct.
So
Correct.
So that would be a great example of one that would not, if approved this way, right, the way that we're recommending right now, would not exist after the adoption of that ordinance because it was not created by resolution and or ordinance, right? And it has the pitfalls of what we've been reviewing right here. Doesn't have a clearly defined mission, didn't have an end date to it, you know, the things like that, right? And so it would just be bringing back, if the council wants to reestablish that, it would just need to reestablish it that way with a resolution or ordinance. The ordinance is simply creating a line in the sand saying, from this point on, they're created only one way, and anything prior to that needs to be recreated if it is to exist.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Y'all good with that? Mm-hmm. Good with that? Okay. And we're really only speaking really of that one ad hoc committee, I think.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think so.
okay, thank you.
Right. The next item is subcommittees, and I'll probably let Brandon talk a little bit more about this one. The section in the Code of Ordinances provides the establishment of council subcommittee for fiduciary oversight input on the budget at the first meeting in June of each year.
Yeah, the only recommendation that we had for these sections, and that was actually the same with the appointment committee as well, we didn't cover it a little bit earlier on, which was you have two spots, well, actually, a couple spots in the ordinances where you're establishing a subcommittee of the council for some reason. But it does not specify how it is you get to the point of selecting that. And so creating more clarity around the process. Okay, so this isn't about, you know, change in the process. It's trying to create a clarity around, do we all agree with this is the way to appoint the fiduciary committee and also the appointments committee? Ultimately, our recommendation is that, and there's a couple different ways to do it. Many cities will use the way of the mayor recommends and the council approves, right? What that does is it creates the opportunity for there to be a process for putting a slate of candidates up for consideration, and then the council decides, ultimately voting, you know, yes, no, making motion to amend, to change a member here or there with it to ultimately approve that slate of candidates. So that's one way that I think works well. I think it's a cleaner process than that, but certainly it is not the only way to do that. But ultimately, our recommendation is that you do that you have the mayor recommends and the council approves process set up both for ad hoc committees as well as the fiduciary committee and the appointments committee as well.
there's one thing I'd like to see on that. I'd like to have a differential between when the committees are being recommended by the mayor and a period to review and then go back and either approve or make changes,
Review what?
recommendations. the slate of candidates that you're putting forth. I don't want to have you bring it to me here, and then I got to sit down and look at it and say, oh, I want to change to this, or I don't like this. I don't want to do it one right on top of the other. So one meeting to bring the slate of candidates forth, and then the next meeting to ratify or amend or.
Well, wouldn't that be the same as just putting a motion out and then for discussion?
It would, except you don't have time to do any research unless you provide that list ahead of time.
Well, when I'm just going back to last year, because last year it was chaos. So you put nominees out. We don't have time at that time to decide whether that Jeff meets the criteria or not. We're still voting at that moment, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I guess my thought is we're talking about, in this case, the dais. We're talking about the 7 of us.
Right.
Being nominated for something. We all have, I would think, pretty good background and understanding of each council member. I don't know what personally waiting a month or a couple of weeks would change my decision. I mean, I'm not sure I follow that.
In my experience on these, always had a smooth experience, and the way it was usually done, if not every time, typically was similar to this, but the mayor would just say that the floor was open to open to nominations, which could come from the mayor or from anyone.
Yeah.
That would be my only recommendation that's different to this. I don't have an issue with it being the mayor, but I might, depending on who the mayor is, they might not want it all on them every time, is my only thought. But so if I was writing it from scratch, I would say that the mayor can open the floor to nominations. And then we just deal with it through motion and discussion like any other item.
I can go either way. But on your staff report, I would have appreciated if you put council subcommittees, because some of our boards and commissions are now having subcommittees, which whether I agree or not agree.
And
but
that is more or less where I was going with that.
No, I understand. But
Not so much.
Oh, well,
But
that's
if you had to go, okay, but when it says subcommittees, you go to section 1.02, you automatically infer it's council.
Right.
But somebody else not knowing where to go look for that would not know that this is only council subcommittees, not others, okay? And it doesn't matter to me whether it's recommended or not recommended, because we're going to discuss to be able to vote and add or subtract or whatever. So that's a procedural type thing.
So maybe I get Jeff's point now.
Yeah.
The council thing is somewhat easier when we know each other. If it's another subcommittee, and I don't know who Joe Fabitz is, I might want to take a little,
But now,
time to figure out. That's different.
in my experience, if a board is appointing a subcommittee, it's contained within the operations of their board. So they would, according to at least how rules of procedure are written today, they would inherit that procedure from our rules. So they would basically just be doing it the same way we would do it at this level. It would just be contained with.
Well,
I'm not familiar with any requirement that boards and commission on a board and commissioner subcommittee for it to come to the council.
Correct. It normally would.
Consideration that normally would just reside with the board or commission.
And this one is specifically council-appointed subcommittees, because you already covered the other under your ad hoc committees.
Correct.
The other is going to be covered under ordinance or resolution.
Correct.
So there's only 2 that we have found. Again, that's the appointments committee, and then this, it doesn't even have a name, so
No.
it's
Fiduciary, something.
fiduciary, but
And
something.
and later on, when we're talking about manuals and the boards and stuff, I'd like to talk about subcommittees, because I don't like them in the boards, but that's me. But in this case, okay,
We do have one other committee, and that is the one,
the mud committee,
there you go.
yeah. So we do have 3, right, that are, and we've had more, but not at this time.
There's probably nothing on any paperwork, Tammy, about that one. That's another one. It would be similar to when we would have named a hiring subcommittee, for example, something that is intended to come and go, which I guess would fall under the ad hoc.
correct. But, okay, where are we now?
I want to make sure on this point here, do we have, are there any recommended changes to the language as we present? We kind of went this way and that way a little bit, so I'm not quite clear on what the desired direction is.
I think Ryland's comment about mayor and whatever that couple words were after that.
Opening the Florida nominations.
Opens the Florida nominations. Okay.
Mayor will present.
But
and-
I'm open to either way. If I could go with the mayor coming in and saying, here, I recommend this, making a motion to whether it be a motion or a conversation piece.
Everybody knows a mayor can think of a mayor in their past where they can see where it could go either way.
But, you know,
And so then it gets a little more political. So that's why if I had my druthers, I'd say just open the floor, and obviously the mayor's free to also participate, but I'm not. I also agree with Dennis that there's 7 people up here that ought to be able to debate it. So it's splitting hairs, but if I was to write it, I'd probably write it as anybody.
And maybe
Make a
it's
nomination.
more efficient to come in with a slate or a recommendation.
Definitely is.
And then if the mayor did whatever, they agree, they voted for that, then you're done. But otherwise, so either way. But I like the idea of a slate coming in with
Does that help you, Brandon, give you direction, or?
no, it didn't
that
give
tells
me
you
any
we're split.
You're split.
Exactly.
But
Nope, not everybody's.
Mayor, we only have really 2 subcommittees that we're even considering. We have 7 people. If someone comes in with a recommendation, such as yourself, we can discuss it and vote it up or vote it down. So I think we're spending too much time turning that rock over. Just if the mayor wants to make the recommendation, we can vote the mayor down, just like we can vote anybody else down. So all we're trying to do is get our hands around the organization and the process of it. I don't think it's a big deal.
That was my thought process behind this, right? The question is, how do you get started in a clean way? And I have seen that process work well, and so it seems like a clean way to get started. Not that there aren't other ways to get started, they're just usually not as clean.
Well, I agree. Next.
Draft boards and commission manual. This is a complete revamp of what you had. What I would suggest, and due to the timing that we have left this evening, is this isn't drafted so you can have an approval at your next meeting.
Okay.
And any comments that you have, in addition to this evening, on different pages, and there are maybe some scrivener errors and things of that, to make an appointment with me, come in and talk with me, give me an email, let's review it, and then I can compile that information and bring back a formal draft for adoption and discussion.
I guess what I will say is this draft is a far improvement. In fact, it's fabulous to see. So that, and I particularly liked all the links that were provided in it. It provides a person a great amount of opportunity to get prepared and be successful on the board. So however you continue to edit this, I don't know. He'll give you some more information.
I'm looking forward to it.
It's very good.
Dennis would like to schedule 4 days.
before Dennis goes into his list, I have one little one.
Ready to go into my.
Okay.
It is really, really good. So
Mine would be that in the towards the end, when it breaks down the data on each board and commission,
Yes,
if there could be a back reference to the establishing ordinance for each board and commission, I think that'd be really useful. Sometimes I want to go find that too, just because I forget where to look for it. But that's the only feedback I had. I agree with everything else Jeanette said.
It's really
One of the items that's not included in this manual, but we've also, this year, we have new boards and commission software. And we're about ready to, it'll be live this week. And it will provide the links to the creating documents for every one of those boards. And it'll have all of the members. And as time moves on, it'll show every member on there, their history, if they were reappointed, and it'll be a great tool for the appointments committee as well. So it brings some organization and structure into that process.
right.
And then leading into that, the last item would be discussion of a council rules and regulations manual.
And that one is, again, we do not have a draft for you this evening. We knew that we'd be up against the time clock already with the items that we have on here today. Yeah, exactly, yeah. Essentially, right now you have in your ordinances, it references that the council shall determine its own rules and regulations. And then goes on to kind of, in ordinance, put several of those items, but some of them appear in the handbook. Some of them are in other policies and things like that. Our thought behind this was try and streamline and put all of the rules and regulations for the council together into one handbook so that you know where all those things are, can read through it easily, and understand what's in there. By removing it from the ordinance sections and all the other handbooks and things like that and putting it into one manual that you adopt by resolution. The idea is that every year you would review that document after the newly seated council members are done on that. Go ahead and have a review of that document, ensure everyone's, if there's any amendments to be made to it or not, go ahead and adopt that as well for the next year, and then the council proceeds forward. It's just a cleaner way to make sure everyone understands what the rules and procedures are at the very beginning. Ultimately, the council governs itself, right? So it's important that you all understand and adhere, and understand those rules and buy into them as well in that process, so.
So you review it every year is what you're saying?
That is correct, yeah.
Perfect. Anybody comment?
Yeah.
Go.
If I understand that, that's one of my comments is I don't see the reason to review this thing every year. You have a policy, you have a procedure to go with the appointments and everything. And I think it's a waste of staff time and council time to have to, quote, review the policy and the procedures and everything every year. Now, if there's an issue, like right now, where we have new staff who has some expertise and they want to make some changes, recommend changes, that's fine. But let's not reinvent the wheel or even set it up to reinvent the wheel every year. So on that part, I was against the annual review part.
Okay.
I have a minute. I kind of, another point is every year we will have a new council person, maybe two, and maybe one year we'll have two new council people and a mayor. And I think reviewing the policy manual as a team is beneficial so that we are all walking the same path. Now, it may not be in depth, Dennis, but it leaves the opportunity to review it together because it gives us a standard from which to talk. So we're not just out there, we're working through this and I learned something as a new mayor, or I learned something as a new council person that I would not have known. So
Council always has the right to change the rules and procedures in the boards and commission in the manual. That's a given. And to say that every time you get a new member of the council or a new board member or whatever, that they need to review it and learn it. And I think that's a standard because you've got to sign off this statement that says, hey, I looked at it, may not understand it. But so I don't see where we have to, reinvent the wheel by putting in writing on that. We have a couple seconds, Mayor, if I could. I'm going to recommend that we continue this workshop to another day because we're not finished with it. The other is I would like to get board and committee committee members to look at this.
The manual?
The manual,
Yes, sir.
yeah. In other words, get some input, not only just from the council, but also from people that this is effective to. And the other thing is we did not get a chance to talk about the finance subcommittee or the appointment subcommittee, which we'll get ready to here in a short bit of time as far as structure. But so we're under the current ordinances and that for this year. But for next year, if we continue this workshop to another day, that could be open for discussion. Thank you.
I'm not following that, Dennis.
Well, there's, right now, we're under ordinance to tonight, choose 3 members for a subcommittee. That's a given, okay? We're going to do a subcommittee. It's been discussed or bantered about as to, do we need a subcommittee? Or can we just do the whole council as in a workshop? And all I wanted to do is have that out for discussion. And when it comes to the way I looked at it, in tonight's, in this draft, in the subcommittee portion, that could have been part of the conversation. Okay? Does that clear to you what I'm asking for?
Doesn't matter if it's clear to me, is it clear to them?
it's no discussion regarding the options for having a finance committee.
At this time, no, there isn't. But at the same time, I'd like to make a motion that we continue this workshop to another day.
don't
There's
need a
no voting, it's
there's no
over.
motion.
No, there's no motion. No, there's no motion.
Okay.
But
if
I'm
we're
just
we're going to
saying,
continue the discussion, I get
Right.
what Dennis is saying.
For the subcommittees.
Let's just add
No, for the whole thing.
Oh.
I'm not ready, like I said, I want citizens input, and what I mean by that is board meetings, commission members, EDC members, park board members, to look at this. It's their manual, it's our manual. Let's get their comments on it. Show them out.
so you,
Is there, just so I understand, is there a particular type of feedback you're looking for
That's what I'm
on
No,
that?
well, no, but, well,
that's what I'm,
actually, I've already had I had Mike Biggs, the chair of P&Z, look at it, and he just, and right away found a graphic error, okay?
Oh, sure.
Not,
Yeah.
but the idea is he didn't have enough time. He had like 5 minutes to look at it, to tell me whether or not he thought, in relationship to his commission, anything that he would recommend that I bring up tonight. And I don't know, they may not say a word, but they may have some things to have to say, and I think it's important we listen to them.
So you want us to give impact to every member or
No,
to like
no,
the
no.
chair and vice chair?
No.
Chair.
No, I'm talking about every member.
Well,
Because
that should be the chair's responsibility.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
you're going to send it out to 67 people. I mean,
right.
80.
I don't mind.
Sure.
I mean, but Dennis's point is probably right. Let's get each chair the opportunity to have a kick at the can and provide feedback. That's the
yeah,
point.
I don't have a problem with that at all.
But at the same time, since it's an open meeting and it's an agenda item, every citizen in town has seen this and has the opportunity to give us input. Thank you. I'm sorry to delay the meeting
Okay.
1 minute.
Anybody else? We're closing up. Anybody? 7:01, we adjourn, and we will take it's 7:01, 7:10, we will reconvene. Thank you.
Mayor, Dennis owes you 1 minute.
It's 7:11. Oh. And I am calling our town council meeting to order. We have a quorum, and it is June the 10th. We will open with our invocation by Barry Klingon. Come in, Barry. Thank you.
Together. Our Father, we stop for this moment to acknowledge you. Lord, you are the great God, the creator of all, and we are grateful, Lord, to receive every good and perfect gift that comes down from above. Lord, we thank you that we can stop for a moment in the busyness of our days and all of the important activities that we have and just recognize your worth. And Lord, we thank you for it. Lord, I thank you that, Lord, you have blessed us in this town with this mayor and council, and I pray your blessing on their lives, on their families. I pray that, Lord, you'd give them all the wisdom that comes down from above that they need to lead this town. Lord, we thank you for our town manager. We thank you for all the staff that support the work that makes this town work. Thank you for each one of them. And I pray, Lord, whatever burden they're carrying in their heart today, that, Lord, you would be gracious unto them and touch them. And, Lord, answer their prayers, I pray. Lord, we thank you for those men and women that protect us. And we pray your blessing upon them in this community. Lord, I pray tonight as we come together to do business, we pray that, Lord, the prayer of the psalmist would be true of us, that, Lord, the meditations of our heart and the words of our mouth would be acceptable in your sight. In your name, Lord, we pray these things. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 Let's do the pledges. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. May be seated. I would like to just take a moment and say, I want to say a special thanks to our pastors in our church, in our town, Trophy Club, who bless us with your prayers, and they're much appreciated. Thank you. All right. Do we have public comments, Ms. Secretary? No public comments. Do we have a community spotlight? I kind of don't think so. No. This is going to go fast. Okay, no community spotlight. Any update from council members? Anybody would like to say anything? Been doing? Yes, Steve?
While it might not be community, it really is. And that is, we took a couple days this past Thursday, Friday, as a session, and the entire staff going over our strategic planning. And that involves every single member of this great town of ours. So hats off to Brandon, the staff, and all of the staff who were there and had great input. I think it was a great 2 days, and we had good discussion. Thank you, Mayor.
The feedback on that was so positive. Thank you so much for the hard work and effort that was put into it. And Tamara, thank you. Your work charts are fabulous. Thank you so much. Anything else, Dennis?
One, Brandon, have a good vacation. I trust that no council person interferes, calls you, or interrupts your vacation.
If they do, shame on them.
Okay.
The phone will be with me.
All right, but the other one is, I would like to, we've had some complaints, emails and stuff about the fiber being put in and that type of thing. It's addressed in our town charter, it's addressed in our ordinances, okay? So the next council meeting, could we just ask for a brief update on what the ordinances say, to how it's inferred to the contractors and the facilitators, or not the utilities, either through permits or meetings or whichever, so that our citizens can know what to expect. The end result is, getting there through any type of utility is not fun. But the idea is we want to minimize our aggravation to our citizens and the after effect to our staff. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, sir. Would you like to say something, Ron?
Yeah, I just wanted to second what you and Steve said, and specifically for our department heads. I know it's difficult to take 2 days away from all your normal workload, and y'all sat in there with all the rest of us, and it made the time spent, even that much more worthwhile. So appreciate all that time and the cross-functional collaboration. I mentioned this to one of the guys we were sitting talking during one of our sessions about getting to talk to, having done this a number of years, getting to talk to department heads about items that aren't under their direct purview is just incredibly helpful for everybody across the board, and it was a lot of fun. So in addition to being productive, so appreciate all the time from all y'all taking 2 full days away from all your normal list of to-dos that were waiting for you this morning. So appreciate it.
For sure. Louis, anything?
Well, I had a lot of fun on the fuchsia team, but
You never
I don't know
moved
if
off that
anybody else
table
did.
for 2 days.
that was the best table. But it was very well orchestrated, very balanced, very educational, and it was a time that we could all come together as a group and team and everybody express what they have on their hearts for the town and what they've heard from the community that they want on the town. And I think we set some great priorities. I believe we ended up with 6, though Brandon wanted 5. But it's hard to whittle down 19.
Yes, it is.
But we did a tremendous job in selecting the ones that we did, and I'm proud of us.
The others are waiting. They're in the
hopper.
yeah.
Not to be forgotten.
Hanging out.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would like to make a comment too. I'd like for the council to expect on June the 24th, Isabella Ramos. She is a 3rd grader from Beck Elementary who won the auction to Mayor of the Day. Mayor of the Day. So she will come here and open the agenda, and I will meet with her. She's joining me on Breakfast with Tiffany's on Monday. And so I'm going to kind of get her acclimated as best I can, so it'll be a good experience for her. But her name again is Isabella, and she will be working with us. Thank you. Anything else? Okay, let's go to the consent agenda, Ms. Secretary.
How about
Oh, no,
the
wait a
update
minute.
from the
We
town
have
manager?
town manager. You want to say anything? Go ahead. I dare you.
I wasn't quite sure if there was an option to not.
Thinking of vacation,
Exactly.
Anna.
I kind of liked the idea there for a second.
No, it was.
I do have a couple of, first of all, I do want to thank the town council and all of our staff for the participation during the council retreat that we had last week. Just like everyone was saying, was a tremendous opportunity. There was a lot of great collaboration that was going on, a lot of great ideas. I think our residents would have been very proud to have watched the leadership in that room as they went through and considered the future of Trophy Club and what it means for us to stand apart and to differentiate ourselves from other cities and towns in this region. So it was a great opportunity. Thank you to all who dedicated their time, obviously over 2 days. We spent probably close to 15 hours together or so doing that. So thank you very much for that effort. On the updates that I have, first of all, I'll go through. We're very proud to announce that the town of Trophy Club has received 2 communication awards during the 2024 Texas Association of Municipal Information Officers, also known as TAMIO, at their conference. Director Lind is going to share with you those 2 areas of awards for us right now.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Yes, I wasn't able to participate last week because I was down in San Antonio on the town's behalf. So
You missed a great 2 days. I just want you
I know, I'm disappointed. We are very pleased to share with you that we did receive 2 awards this year. The TAMI Awards highlight outstanding communication in a variety of categories, including websites, social media, video production, and publications. The competition this year was tougher than ever. There were a total of 688 award submittals. That's 141 more than the year prior. And we took home 2 awards. So in the category of publications, e-newsletter, our town weekly newsletter took home 2nd place, the Award of Excellence. And in the category of video, special use, or one-time video, our TC Employees Rock video earned us 3rd place, Award of Honor. Kelly and I were honored to accept the awards during the conference. These projects are made possible thanks to the collaboration and teamwork we receive from all of our departments. My directors and their teams all make this possible. I also want to give a special thank you to Kelly Martinez for her help with these and all other communication projects we have going on. She's been a tremendous asset and huge creative help. And in addition, we couldn't do any of this without the support we received from our leadership, mayor, council members, and Brandon, of course. These 2 trophies will join our other 6 Tammy Awards. They're in my office if you'd like to take a look at them. And tomorrow we'll be posting a press release with links to this year's winnings and the last few that we've received as well. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Congratulations. I think I have seen a significant growth and expertise in the communication to the town over the last 8 months. And I appreciate your work and the effort that you've committed to that to make it happen. Thank you for the communication.
Thank you.
Thank you for the newsletter.
Thank you, Brandon.
We thank you both.
No.
Great job.
All right, yeah, Jill and Kelly do a great job putting all that together, so thank you so much to their hard work. But we're not done with awards for today. So we also, Trophy Club's Town Secretary's Department has been honored with one of 24 Municipal Clerk's Office Achievement of Excellence Awards for the year of 2024-2025. This award that they were given was designed to recognize excellence in the effective and efficient managing resources within the Municipal Clerk's Office. So join me in congratulating our Town Secretary.
Do we get to hear from her?
Sure, go ahead.
Come on up here, girl. Come on.
I'll stay here. Just quickly, the award is not for me, it is for our office.
Okay.
And the application process was about 200 pages. We had to have proving documents that we met 9 of the 12 criteria. We submitted 10 of the requirements, and it could not have been done without Maggie's help. She's amazing. And again, out of the 595 cities, we were one of 24 to receive it. So I'm very proud to be part of this team, and hopefully we'll get it in another 2 years.
Good job. Thank you so much, Tam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, a lot of hard work, but a lot of recognition for us, the great work that Tammy and Maggie do there in the Town Secretary's office. They do a tremendous job.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have our 4th of July celebration coming up. So it is our highlight event of the year where we honor our red, white, and blue heritage. Day is going to start with the patriotic 5K and fun run. Then we have the Parade of Patriots. And we're going to end the evening with the fireworks celebration. So we invite all of the community to come and join us for a day of fun on the 4th of July. We don't have any boards and commission meetings coming up over the next until our next meeting. However, our next event is the Monday, June 17th, Breakfast with Tiffany. That's going to be at 9 o'clock, and it's at the Starbucks inside of Tom Thumb. And that's all that I have right now, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Civic tip of the month.
Look at him, leap to his.
I know it. We love these civic tips.
So there's a developer agreement on the agenda, and you might see some of these come through as the town gets developed. So I just want to kind of explain where this comes from. This is section 10.02.201 of the Code of Ordinances. It's in the subdivision chapter. So previously these were called subdividers agreements. The ordinances now call them developer agreements. And the whole point here is to ensure that when development comes through the town and when an area is developed, that they provide performance, payment, maintenance bonds, insurance. And the reason for that is it's good fiscal practice. In case the developer were to go belly up, you'd be able to enforce on the performance bond. And so this is a typical practice of most municipalities, but that's kind of the general context. And so you have it actually codified in your ordinance. And you'll also see on that agreement that the ordinance requires the mayor to sign it. And that's why her name is there and not Brandon's.
Sorry, Brandon.
My hand is just fine. I did forget to mention, well, I didn't forget to mention, I misspoke earlier, the boards and commission meetings. We do have one meeting coming up in 2 days, June 12th, 6:30 PM. Our Animal Services Board will be meeting here at Town Hall. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you. We will go to the consent agenda, Tammy.
Item 3, consider authorizing the town manager to negotiate and execute a professional services agreement with Teague, Noll, and Perkins in a not-to-exceed amount of $411,500 for civil engineering, easement acquisition, bidding and construction administration, and construction inspection services for the Inverness Drive Drainage Improvement Project. Item 4, consider a developer agreement between the Town of Trophy Club and Wasatch Properties LLC for the Triple Crown Estates and authorizing the mayor or her designee to execute same on behalf of the town. Item 5, consider an ordinance revising the sex offender regulations and residency restrictions by amending Chapter 8, Offenses and Nuisances, Article 8.06, Sex Offender Residency Restrictions of the Code of Ordinances in its entirety.
Is there a motion?
Mayor, may I make a motion or a request that item number 5, sexual regulations, be removed and put into regular session?
Okay. So we are going to remove item 5, and we will make a motion. Is there a motion for 3 and 4, please?
Yeah, I'll move that we approve consent agenda items 3 and 4.
Second.
Those in favor? Those opposed? Thank you. So we're going to open the discussion. Is that correct for item 5?
Yeah, Mayor, thank you. The reason I brought this up is I'm referring to page 100 of 123, top of the page in parentheses C, where the town manager may make adjustments to the map at any time to remove or add child safety zones. 1, to conform with the development of the town. 2, as any change in condition of the premises may require, or is required by law. That portion then it says that the town manager shall be provided to the town secretary, and the town secretary shall provide a certified copy of the revised map to the town chief of police. This used to be a council issue. Now it's being turned over to the town manager. I have no problem with that. But if there's any changes, I think that the town council should be advised of the changes. How you word it, I'm kind of open to listening to Dean on, but I think that we need to be aware. Thank you.
Dean, do you have any comment on that?
Sure. So after chief of police, it says any adjustments made to the map by the town manager shall be provided to the town secretary, and the town secretary shall provide a certified copy of the revised map to the chief of police, and the town manager shall provide written notice to the town council.
It's fine with me, as long as the council's aware.
Okay.
So
Do we have a motion then for that?
I'll make a motion that we approve agenda item number 7 with the changes.
No, it's 5.
Excuse me, number 5.
Okay.
As with the changes recommended by Dean, our town attorney.
Those in,
I'll second.
A second. Those in favor? Those opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Dean.
Thank you. So we'll go to individual items, number 6.
Consider designating 3 council members to serve on a council subcommittee formed for the purpose of providing fiduciary oversight of the budget, as well as providing input regarding the administration of the budget and the budget process.
Okay, so I'm going to suggest that since we do not have a process, then I'm going to open this with my recommendations, which we can then have a discussion. And so I recommend that we appoint Councilman Sheridan, Councilman Flynn, Councilman Rowe to the subcommittee leading to, for the financial subcommittee. Open for discussion.
I've done it before, be happy to do it again.
Okay.
So appreciate the thought. I would, referring back to what our previous discussion hinted at, I would also add that we have the ability as a body to task the subcommittee. So if there are any thoughts or questions operationally about how to best utilize it, we could always take action to do so, right? Is there anything preventing us from that?
What do you mean task the subcommittee?
Right, I mean, it's pretty open-ended in the ordinance, right? How we task the subcommittee, right? Yeah, so if there was reason to have discussion about exactly how they should operate,
Oh, of course. Okay, yeah.
we could always do that, yeah.
One of the things that came up to mind is you have a subcommittee then if another council person has an issue or an item or wants to discuss something with the budget, do they go through the subcommittee, or do they go direct to staff, or do they go through the town manager? But you've got some experience on this?
I would treat it like any other item, and you'd go through the town manager typically.
Okay.
As any of us would. If
So as to not-
any of us have questions on
Yeah.
the finances, if we go to the town manager for that information.
You wouldn't want to inadvertently create a walking quorum by talking to one of the other three and then things of that nature. Yeah.
Yeah, the general rules of administration of the budget still are contained in ordinance on there. There are sections there that outline those components, right? That the town manager creates a budget, presents it to the town council, right, by way of either this committee or not.
And this other discussion, anybody discussion? Jeff, you have any questions? Stacy?
No, second, not.
You're going to second the motion? So it's not a motion yet. That's a recommendation.
I'll make a motion that we take Mayor Tiffany's recommendation for the appointment of Steve Flynn, Dennis Sheridan, and Rylan Rowe to the council subcommittee for the purpose of providing fiduciary oversight.
Is there a second?
Second.
Jeff seconds that. Are those in discussion on this? Okay.
I'll just add while we still have the floor open on this, is that as it relates to my previous comment, because I'm not a fan of the open-ended nature of the way the ordinance is written that authorizes this, I will second any other council person's desire for an agenda item on how to dictate how to best operate the subcommittee.
In the future, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So we go back to then, all those in favor of that motion, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Motion passes. And we go to item 7. And would you read that, please?
Consider designating 3 council members to serve on a town council appointments committee tasked with making recommendations to the full council regarding appointments to all boards, commissions, and corporations.
So again, since we don't have a process, I would like to put forth the following recommendations, that it would be Councilman Oldham, Councilman Beach, and myself as appointments for the board appointments. Discussion?
No.
Mayor, I'll be honored to serve on that again. This will be my third time, and appreciate it.
Welcome. Jeff?
I'm good with it.
Okay, so anybody want to make a
I'll make a
motion?
motion that the appointments committee be the Mayor Tiffany, Councilwoman Oldham, and Councilman Beach.
There's a second? Steve Flynn seconds that. Or is there any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Those opposed? Motion passes. It's 7:34. We are going into an executive session. Lucky us. Here we go. Before we leave, we would like for Tammy to read it.
Executive session pursuant to the following designated sections of the Texas Government Code, Section 551076 and 551089, to deliberate the deployment or specific occasions for implementation of security personnel, critical infrastructure, or security devices, or a security audit.
And what about A? Do you read that as well or not?
No.
Okay. So it is 7:34, adjourned to the executive session. a item.
Yeah, that should be smart. We do that in all my stuff at work. I'll make a note on that. That's a good thing we did that.
Consider a resolution. It's 7:59. We will reconvene into regular session. And I think what we need to do is consider a resolution. Is that correct? Directing the town manager to utilize $200,000 dedicated to town hall building improvements in the year of 2024 capital improvement plan to provide security enhancements to the town facilities.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed? We need to adjourn. Anybody?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
7:59. That's fast.
Look at that. Good work.